What is the difference between the littoral zone and the sublittoral zone? If you're curious about the ocean's different layers and how they support various forms of marine life, you're in the right place. Let's break down the differences between the littoral zone and the sublittoral zone. The littoral zone is the area where the ocean meets the land. It's a dynamic and constantly changing environment due to the action of waves and tides. This zone includes the area from the high tide mark down to the low tide mark, and sometimes even a bit deeper. Here, you'll find a mix of land and water, with organisms like snails, crabs, and small fish that are adapted to the daily changes in water level, salinity, and temperature. Now, let's talk about the sublittoral zone. This zone starts below the low tide mark and extends out to where the sunlight barely reaches. It's an area that is always underwater, unlike the littoral zone, which is exposed to air during low tide. The sublittoral zone is characterized by less variation in water conditions compared to the littoral zone, but it still has its own unique challenges. Here, you'll find organisms that are adapted to living in deeper waters, such as larger fish, corals, and other marine animals that don't need to cope with the constant changes of the tide. One key difference is the level of sunlight. In the littoral zone, sunlight is abundant, which supports a rich growth of aquatic plants. In contrast, the sublittoral zone receives much less sunlight, especially as you go deeper. This affects the types of plants and animals that can survive there. Another important difference is the type of habitat. The littoral zone includes rocky coasts, sandy beaches, and estuaries, each with its own specialized flora and fauna. The sublittoral zone, on the other hand, can include coral reefs, kelp forests, and other deep-water habitats that are home to a different set of species. In terms of water motion, the littoral zone experiences high wave energies and strong currents due to the breaking waves and tidal movements. The sublittoral zone has less intense water motion, making it a more stable environment for certain types of marine life. So to sum it up, the littoral zone is the area where land meets the ocean, with a mix of exposed and submerged conditions, while the sublittoral zone is the area below the low tide mark, always underwater, with less sunlight and different types of habitats and organisms. Each zone supports a unique array of marine life adapted to its specific conditions.